What's up, everybody? I'm Alex.
I'm Cody.
With Slow Your Roll, and we're going to be talking about 7 more homebrew monsters for your table. And this one's got a theme. We're talking about Crystal Golem. Everyone probably has a different crystal come to their mind when you say crystal. I think of amethyst, but others might think of a different color, like aquamarine or garnet. But really, in D&D, I bet you never had to fight one. So let's talk about that.
Starting off with number 1, the red garnet golem. This thing is made from deep red garnets, and it actually emanates this warmth that is evidence that it holds the essence of fire. One thing you might want to watch out for, as this thing is taking damage, it is able to directly take the friction of these hits and everything else to build up this charge, and then, boom, basically cast fireball on itself, hurting anyone around it.
Except itself.
Of course. This thing's going to be careless, so if there's anything burnable around, it doesn't care. It's not hurt by the fire. It's just going to violently explode, hurt anyone or anything in the vicinity that's flammable, which typically players are flammable to some degree.
And I'd also like to think if you looked into its chest, you would even see a little bit of a flame burning.
This thing would be able to slam into its opponents with molten rocks on its own fist with melee attacks, or even harness some of its energy and launch fiery beaming attacks for ranged.
Essentially little meteors coming your way. And when you think you finally killed the red golem, he has a self-destruct sequence that you've just activated. But going in color order, we've got the orange citrine golem. This golem has control over the sand and wind. You would definitely find this stashed away in the desert somewhere. I would even like to think it'd probably be nestled amongst a crystal formation, and then it springs to attack. Shifting sands being one of its ability, and it'd be able to move through the sands with no hindrance of movement, almost like a shark in the sand.
Can you imagine this slow-moving, hulking, crystalline creature, and then suddenly it dives into the sand and it's faster than anyone else in the party?
And I'd like to think it does that through like vibrating its body just to get through the sands, just to make it even more intimidating when it gets close to you. It's just like shaking the earth around you.
Yes, maybe just like have this low ominous humming that the players hear first and like, what is that?
Yeah, definitely. I like that. And we've just been talking about the sand. It's also got control of the wind around, creating a sandstorm. The perfect opportunity to be able to hurt your players every single round or just heavily obscure the battlefield.
Continuing in order of the color spectrum, we are moving on to number 3, the yellow topaz golem. This bright yellow topaz golem has the ability to harness and direct the very light of the sun. This thing can store up sunlight and actually throw it as violent beams of radiant damage towards its victims. But that's not even its biggest threat. The biggest issue dealing with this thing, if you catch it out in the daylight, you can't even look at it. It's like looking directly at the sun, which will definitely inflict anyone looking upon this creature with the blinded condition. And though this thing seems really strong in the middle of the day, just imagine you find this at night and it's just a regular crystalline golem, maybe even fragile.
This could really teach your players when a battle is important. Should they come across it during the day and they press the advance, they should be very, very sad to figure out that it's almost impossible to fight while blind.
Honestly, I can imagine an entire one-shot just developed around these massive creatures of sunlight that are devastating. The concept is you have to find them out in the wild at night, and then you can beat them.
Yeah, and I could even imagine if you did try to fight it during the day, maybe it like healed a little bit because it was in sunlight every single round. So it'd be really hard to kill this thing.
Maybe even more so for your paladins and clerics that are trying to hit him with radiant damage.
Which he's resistant to. And if you know your rainbows, we're going on to green. And what else would green be but the nature golem? A crystallized emerald golem that's able to suck the life out of any living plant or animal found within its grasp. Any melee attack that this monster makes saps the life straight from you. So every attack that lands heals the monster. Being able to control plants and other things in the area to restrain and strangle. This sounds like a formidable foe.
This could be really interesting, especially if you have a player in the party that is actually like a warforged or even an undead somehow. Maybe their life energy isn't stolen when attacked, immediately elevating them to maybe MVP status fighting one of these things. And at number 5, we have the blue sapphire golem. This deep blue sapphire golem is a master with natural natural affinity with water and ice. This allows it to move fluidly not only in water, but even through the solid structure of ice.
And these things being large gemstones, possibly even akin to pearls, maybe you even find it in the mouth of a giant clam.
This thing can transform its own limbs into torrents of water or jagged spikes of ice, allowing for really cool melee and ranged attacks. It could of course have a water-based tidal wave-like AoE, pushing players away with violent speed, or slam its own jagged ice spikes of fists directly into its victims.
And if your party was unfortunate enough to fight this thing in water, I can imagine it's got an ice wall just like Gara to protect it from just about every attack.
The first encounter setup I could think of with this thing is, imagine if your party ended up walking across this massive lake to get somewhere, and it's just frozen solid, but there's nothing around for hundreds of feet. And then they hear a rumbling and see that the very ice itself is moving in lumps till this creature appears and provokes brown trousers.
It's a real condition. Look it up. The very next one we're going to be talking about is indigo. That's going to be the lapis lazuli golem. A lot of people think of this as blue, but if you look at what lapis lazuli is, it comes in a lot of different shapes and colors. And we're going to combine that with psychic abilities. Being able to manipulate the mind and several different illusions, this would be the hardest gem to track down. Essentially being able to create entire environments that are illusions. You'd be able to step into a cave and not even realize that you're going the wrong way or about to run into a wall or off a cliff. This golem may even have some sort of magical defense barrier. It could just be outright immune or resistant to magic, or you could have to break the barrier to actually start fighting the real golem. And as an attack, trying to play with the mind, you're probably going to be able to take over the other party members, or at the very least, confuse and disorient the players, causing massive disadvantages.
Again, if you ever wanted to run a one-shot or just a dungeon crawl with a dungeon that is constantly moving around and being manipulated, even in a way that actually doesn't make sense, it could be this whole thing's bit as it's resting at the end of the dungeon, just toying with the players. Maybe the players have to find out as they're going that all of this, it's all just illusions as it's happening. Being comprised of vibrant amethyst gems, Golem harnesses the power of gravitational energies. This creature can manipulate gravity and communicate or attack through spiritual means. Fighting this creature could be really interesting when suddenly it turns out that even your players trying to hold the great axe, suddenly this great axe is 5 times as heavy, and it's incredibly difficult for them to even hold it up in the air. Also, this creature needs a ranged ability, of course, so it will just pick up a player and drop it or throw it at a wall or the ceiling.
I feel a really cool ability to give this would just be reversing gravity in a bubble or something like that. Right in front of you in this 10-foot sphere, now gravity's reversed. You're going to the ceiling, and you better hope there's a ceiling.
Can you imagine just literally just starting to fall into the sky and just being like, what do we do?
Yeah, right. You better hope you're a monk.
Yeah. And if your players are just hitting this creature a little too easily, imagine this creature just picks up all the rocks around it and it just starts hurling these rocks around its body in this devastating halo.
And if you've ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, he does that move too. He's got an earth halo surrounding him, and he just sends out little shards of the rocks every now and then. It's really cool.
Yes.
These 7 golem gems have been really interesting, but what if your players wanted to find one specific gem? And I think you know the one I'm talking about. The diamond golem. Should they kill this monster, they'll have plenty of resurrection stones. And I could only imagine how big a diamond golem really is. But should you have a diamond golem, I'm sure they'd be able to do a little bit of everything from all of the previous golems. White is a conglomeration of all the lights, so it really only makes sense. That's right?
Yeah, sure. It's white or black. It's one of those. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Depends on if you're into like art or like lights and stuff. I don't know.
Those are just the golems we got a couple of ideas for. And if you guys need to give your players one reason to get involved into the golem hunting trade, let's just say a very rich gem trader is in a vast need of gems. And the only way to get that many gems is probably by killing a giant amethyst golem.
Or again, if you need an entire one-shot hook, they meet a gem trader. And this gem trader is like, I need this specific gem. It's in this area. They don't mention anything about a golem or anything like that, but the players would unfortunately find that out when they get to the big bad of the one-shot, being one of these massive creatures ready to just tear them up.
I thought this was a mining expedition.
So if you enjoyed that, everyone, please do feel free to leave a comment if there's something you want to be more fleshed out. We'd be happy to do that. We really like doing homebrew stuff, and we'd be very happy to throw together a PDF or a one-shot like we described. So just let us know which one you liked.
And if you did like that video, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. And I noticed you're not wearing your Slow Your Roll merch yet, and we can fix that.
I can see that shirt you're wearing. It's not Slow Your Roll.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.